start by, as always, thanking my family, my wife, Melania, my kids. They're not kids anymore, but they're kids as far as I'm concerned. They'll always be my kids. And I want to thank my great parents who are looking down right now, and my brother looking down on us. I want to thank my entire family, including Marianne, Elizabeth, Robert. And it's been some unbelievable day and evening and year, and never have been through anything like this, but it's a beautiful thing to watch and a beautiful thing to behold. And we're going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. So important. The people of Indiana have been incredible.
Good morning. This is Mac with the Mac Commentary. Many of you have not heard from me in a while. I've been working on other projects, in particular with a associate of mine who is writing a book that I think will be beneficial for many people to take a look at. And I will talk more about that book in the future. But that's what I have been doing. But I've also been watching diligently and with what has been happening on the political scene. And I noticed that a lot of people, blacks in particular, did not like Dr. Ben Carson and his run as a Republican for the President of the United States. I think that Dr. Carson would have made probably the best president that we've had in the last, 50 years or so, because of his, and especially for blacks. And the reason I think that is because of where he came from and how he achieved what he achieved in his life. And I think that he would have imbued many blacks with this same type of determination to get their education, to start businesses, and to do things that would uplift the black community. I know a lot of people dislike Dr. Carson for the reason that he was a Republican. I believe if Dr. Carson had been running as a Democrat, many blacks would have rallied behind him and given him the support. But we sat back and let the news media take Dr. Carson down, even though they're trying to spin it now that Donald Trump did that. Mr. Trump did not bring Mr. Carson down, but the news media did, and trying to go back and look up things in his past in a book that he had written and try to vet all of these particular little things that happened 50 years ago. But be as it is, Dr. Carson is no longer running. So we now have a nominee for the, in my opinion, for the to run for the against Hillary Clinton on the Republican side, and that is Donald Trump. Donald Trump has won the Republican nomination because everybody else has dropped out. Now this morning I have with me my friend Bob. Bob will and I will discuss the phenomenon of what has occurred here over the last year or so, and how Mr. Trump has elevated himself on top of the heap. Good morning, Bob. How are you?
Oh, good morning, Mac. I'm doing just fine, and thank you again for inviting me to speak with your listeners. I too have been watching the political activity over the last several months, and I agree with you that because Dr. Ben Carson was my candidate as well, and then as he suspended his campaign, I noticed that within a week or so of that suspension, he endorsed Donald Trump. And I saw him on a news broadcast after he made that announcement, and the reporter was asking him, well, how come you're so supportive of Donald Trump? And he said then, and this has been several weeks ago, he said, because I think that I've listened to Mr. Trump, and I believe that he is the right man at this time. He said, of course, I would have wanted to be in that position myself, but the voters thought otherwise, and I think he is the best person to handle this responsibility because he does indeed want to make this country what it should be for all of us as Americans, and that's why he said that he was endorsing Mr. Trump, and he was going to be very active in his campaign. And I've noticed since that endorsement that Donald J. Trump, every time he speaks of Dr. Carson, he speaks of him with nothing but admiration and respect. I mean, he lifts him to the pinnacle on which he should sit. And I believe that Donald Trump is going to be the next president. As you said, he is now the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party. But I want to comment on something else you said earlier. Why, if Dr. Carson had been a Democrat, he would have been right out there like Bernie Sanders or some other, perhaps even more so. Because, I was thinking about this, that the Democrats, they put up candidates like, and I have nothing but respect for Dr. Jesse Jackson. Reverend Jesse Jackson. I don't know that much about this other fellow, Al Sharpton, but they put those two guys up, and they were trying to cultivate the black vote. They knew, I think, that those two fellows would not have even been in the final heat or the final race, because they knew that a lot of Caucasians in the Democratic Party were not going to support them. The Democratic Party is the racist party of both political parties. It is most racist than Republicans, but it presents itself as the most liberal. And so it puts out these two candidates, black candidates, that they wanted to see if they could put together a coalition of blacks, and so they kind of sent those two guys out there as you might say test marketers. We'll run this up the flagpole and see how many blacks support them. And blacks, Jesse Jackson, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and Al Sharpton, they got well over 90% of the vote each time they voted, but they couldn't win because they couldn't get the racist whites in the Democratic Party to support them. So they said, okay, well, we weren't able to pull that one off. Here's what we'll do. We'll get a candidate that's a biracial candidate. But black people are going to perceive of him as a black candidate. His name is Barack Obama. And as white people, they will consider him to be a white candidate. So they run him out there, and what happens? He wins both times. Now, you can't get blacks. And my point is this. Blacks have been bamboozled by the Democratic Party, which is the old slave party of old. And on the other hand, the Republican Party is the party of Lincoln, the party of so-called freedom. But it's been flip-flopped where people see the Republicans racist and the Democrats as liberal. And it is really just the opposite. So I've been thinking about how Dr. Carson, if he could generate the same kind of momentum among us, among black people, that Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and President Barack Obama generated among blacks and other people of color for the Democratic Party, the racist party of America, if he could do that with the same impetus for the Freedom Party of America, the Republican Party, Donald J. Trump might have a chance at winning this election, and it would really be happy days are here again, Mac.
Well, first of all, Bob, I mean that's a great observation that you've made there. But I don't think the media. You see, black people, for the most part, they believe, and not only blacks, but but the masses. But I'm talking about blacks in particular here. They believe everything, for the most part, what they hear on the radio, the television, and all the other media out there. They believe that. And so the media will come up with something that always, just like they did on this last time, to put Mr. Carson down. And by doing that, blacks will believe what they say about him. They will look for anything at all that will that's negative about Mr. Carson, so they cannot like him because he's a Republican. They hate the Republicans so much that, and they think that all blacks should be Democrats. Well, we should be monolithic for our own personal interests as a group, as a racial group. We should be monolithic. But the problem with that, Bob, is that we will not follow that course of action. We will not follow that because what will happen here, and I believe, is that once Mr. Trump becomes president, if everything happened the way it's everybody think it will, that there'll be a lot of racism and all of this other stuff, which I don't think will happen. I mean, not in this day and age. But let's say that did happen. The best thing that I can see out of having a Donald Trump become president for blacks would be that the blacks will begin to form and coalesce and form a community again and get together and try to build their communities, which is something that we are not doing. See, we are not moving vertical. We are moving horizontal. We are integrated, moving out into the suburbs, but we are leaving our sense of identity, our culture. Everybody else has taken our culture and they are disseminating, they are making money off of it. From the movies to the record industry to the sports. Remember now, you go back when we had a community, which we don't have now. We had baseball teams, right? We had businesses in our community, right? But now look at who's running the businesses in black communities. It is something that will not happen in a Hispanic community or in an Arab community. They run their own businesses and then they go out into our community, black communities, and they get a toehold in there and they run that community, businesses in that community. So I think that if this thing continue with Trump being in the front, become elected as the president, and I think that something like this could coalesce the blacks to come together again. That's what I'm hoping for. But I don't think Mr. Trump gonna be a bad thing for blacks. I don't think he's gonna be a bad thing for the country. I think he's gonna be a good thing for the country because he's gonna bring jobs back to this country. He's gonna give business incentives to keep jobs in this country and not go and ship the jobs overseas. Now, what's your opinion on that, Bob?
Oh, I agree with you completely on that point, Mac. I think that Mr. Trump will indeed do that. He's because I truly think in his heart of hearts he does want to make America great again. And I heard him in one of his rally speeches make this comment. He says, he's been in running when he announced in June that he was going to run for president. He started traveling all over the country, and he said before that he would fly over the country in his jet plane, how beautiful it is. But now he's got to ride around, and he said the first primary that he ran in was up in New Hampshire. And he said, they were driving through these little towns and hamlets, and it was so beautiful. and he saw many of the people. It's so nice. And he said then he would go into the rallies and he would ask people, well, what's the biggest problem? And they would tell him, oh, heroin, heroin. And he said, he thought, my God, how could that be here in New Hampshire? So he said the people were telling him that they had one of the biggest heroin problems in the United States. And he said, I promised those people then, when I left there, he said, I'll be back. And when I become president, I'm going to do something about that. That's just one indication. Then I saw another rally where he was speaking in Maryland. And he said, it's atrocious that 59% of young blacks are unemployed. I didn't hear any of those Democrats talking about that. I thought, wow, these people out here saying that this man is a racist. He doesn't care about this. Doesn't care about. I haven't heard anybody else say that. He acknowledged, because he said after he left New Hampshire, he started getting his people. He said he told them, look, get me the statistics on, because I'm going to be speaking someplace else. I want to know what that area looks like. And he said everywhere he went, the jobs had left there, unemployment. He said there's real unemployment because the way they read the unemployment, they tell you it's 5%. He said the real unemployment in America is about 20 to 25%. And he said, I've seen it with my own eyes driving through these places. And he says that unemployment among black youth, the young black men, is 59%. How can you expect them to know how to hold a job and get educated with that kind of disparity?
Right.
So I agree with you.
Well,
Once this man is elected, he's going to start bringing jobs back, and it's going to be again, like I say, happy days will be here again.
Well, one of the things too, you look at what is happening with blacks. They want to put down Mr. Trump, but like you said, he will be bringing jobs back to this country. And you go back and look at NAFTA, North American Free Trade Act, that was done. Now you got to recall, Bob, that was a Democratic president in the White House at that time, right?
Bill Clinton.
Yeah, and I mean, all the jobs left, and I know many people that lost their jobs going over into sending those jobs over into to different countries, China, Mexico, Malaysia, you name it. Jobs just left here in droves. And the people that were not educated or did not have the necessary skills to get out there and go and move over into another job category, they've just left out.
That's right.
And that's what is happening. As you go into the black communities, you still finding people that don't have jobs because they didn't get retrained for those jobs. So what do? They get out here. You got this media, the liberal media. They are out here promoting all this here rap stuff, and which is denigrating the black community. And I've talked about this in the past. And it's continued to go on. And all these young black kids grow up thinking they're going to be rappers, basketball players, or drug dealers. And it's not going to happen.
That's right. That's exactly right. And Mac, think of this. Bill Clinton signed that NAFTA agreement. And now we got his wife running for president. You remember that old adage, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I guess they say that Bill Clinton was the first black president. I never believed that. Because to me, he's always carried himself as a person who thought of himself as being white. So why would I change my thinking to think that he's a black president? But the point is this. He signed that NAFTA agreement that you just spoke of, resulting in all of these lost jobs, manufacturing jobs. I mean, we've lost our manufacturing base, and many of the jobs that would be available, because there was a time you could drop out of high school, go to Ford Motor Company or General Motors or someplace like that, and get a job on the line. Well, you can't do that anymore.
Well, look what else they've done, Bob. They've made, like in Detroit in particular. I guess you can go to just about any other major city in the U.S. and you will find that the schools are in atrocious situations where not enough money or whatever. The kids are not getting educated. They're not getting trained to go on to better jobs or getting into the high tech field. They're not doing anything. Look what they've created in Detroit. It is what, 50% graduation rate or something like that?
Yes, that's correct.
And I mean, and you got 50,000 students there. Then in the public school, then they've created all of these charter schools, and they're not doing any better.
That's right. All those charter schools are creating high-paid jobs for people that, well, I don't want to be critical of them. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. The school systems in all metropolitan areas have pretty much been decimated. They've been destroyed. And it goes back to something you said earlier. There's no more jobs available for these young people. This 59% that Mr. Trump pointed out, there's no jobs, manufacturing jobs, where these kids could get a living and raise a family, like it was years ago where you had a mother and a father, or if they weren't a mother and a father in the household, at least somebody was contributing to the well-being of those children. They could get well-being in the household, and then they could expect to go to school, and the teachers had some concern about their well-being, and they carried that message forward, and these kids grew up to be reputable and upstanding young citizens in their community. But they don't have any community today. You pointed that out, and that's absolutely right. We do not have a black community. You hear people mouth that, I'm from the black community. Where is your community? You could go to the Chinese community. You could go to the Hispanic community. You could go to the Arab community. But where's the black community? We live all over, but we don't have any community where we have an economic base where kids coming out of school can go and work at a drugstore or at a grocery market like I did when I was a kid. I used to work for the Green Prescription Drug Center, and these were black people, pharmacists that owned 3 different stores. And I started out just cleaning up. Before that, I got promoted to be a stock boy. These kids coming out of school today, if they graduate, they don't have that opportunity.
Right.
Because we don't have an economic base, an economic black community.
Right, because you all these people out there that claim they're making all this money, they building these empires. You see all these rappers talking about that. You see all these movie stars out there. You see all these basketball players out there. They all go out there and they build all these humongous mansions and stuff, and make millions, multi-millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, Bob. And then all of a sudden you see they file for bankruptcy. What happened to all that? Now,
die from drug use.
Right. Now, if they had just taken the time to say, okay, I'm going back into my community. I'm going to take $50 million. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to start business. I'm going to put together an organization. I'm going to put together LLC. I'm going to put together a corporation or whatever. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to build within and make money available for other blacks to open up businesses. And if they did that and ran it like a business and got the best people in there to help them, then you will see them become billionaires, Bob. We got 40 million people in this country, and if you treat each city like a community with businesses, only thing you do is turn that money over and over again, what's going to happen? You're going to get richer and richer, and you're going to be able to help out more and more people. But we don't think like that. Only thing we think individual. We think we got to move out into the suburbs. We got to get out of the city, and we got to go out there and build us a mega church, or we got to build us a mega mansion, what they call them, Big Mac mansion, a Mac mansion, or whatever. That's what we have to do, and that's where we are wrong. And that's why I think once we get solidified and we can, they don't want us to think like a community. They don't want us to think like, they want to keep us in a disarray so they can capitalize on all the culture and all the money and everything that this culture that is generated within the neighborhoods and within the black people area of expertise. You know, they control all of that, Bob. And I think that, and if when they were planning NAFTA, they got another one now. They call the something to do with the Pacific trade thing that they are trying to push through.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. We'll get on that another time. But when they created the NAFTA, if the Democrats had blacks in mind, why didn't they do something with the educational system? Say all these jobs going to go out, the manufacturing jobs. So what we need to do is retrain our youth.
That's right.
And they did what they did. And I'm gonna give you a perfect example of that. I have noted that Detroit educational system in 1999, before the state took over, they had a deficit. I mean, a surplus. The kids were test scores were on par with the rest of the state of Michigan. But what happened? After 15 years, Bob, after 15 years, it has now deteriorated to the point where the education is deplorable.